Police time to release the rock and roll. Time is past, the men's too hard, the time is big and it's cold.
Today I want to talk about the law and speeding in cars. Speeding is one of these things which people react to in a variety of ways, but many people behave as though it was a diktat from God that you mustn't exceed the 30-mile-an-hour speed limit, and it isn't. The law is a hodgepodge of really simplistic solutions to complex problems created by well-intentioned but naive people over mainly recent years. Most of it, the vast amount of law, has been created in the last 50 years. Far less was created in the past. We just have an obsession with creating laws, and lots of them make absolutely no sense, and one of those is the principle of speeding. And as a result of the way I feel about it, I have actually challenged a speeding fine in firstly the Magistrates Court and then taken it up to the Crown Court 5 years ago, because I felt that it was very wrong that I'd actually received it. And I actually did achieve a moral victory in that I didn't win the case, but I was commended by the judge for bringing it and for the arguments I'd put. And the Crown Prosecution Service were awarded no costs, and I had exactly the same situation in terms of points as I would have had. But by fighting that case, I did actually send out a warning shot across the bows in the Wiltshire area, and by apparent coincidence, 2 weeks after my case, speed cameras in Wiltshire were turned off. Now, the reason I'm talking about today is because I've got another speeding camera, alleged offence that I've been sent. And I will, again, if I need to, take it to court and fight it, because I think that we need to start growing up and working on principles rather than the laziness of trying to create laws which can never, ever define what is, for example, speeding and what is not, because it depends on the conditions and the type of car and so on. So I've written to something called Brian C. Pritchard at Thames Valley Police, and I've received, as I expected, the usual drivel reply back. And I just want to read one paragraph out and allow you just a couple of seconds to think about why the answer he's given me is absurd. Speed limits are in place for good reasons. If a vehicle hits an adult pedestrian at 30 miles an hour, the survival chance is 80%. However, at 40 miles an hour, the pedestrian's chance of survival drops to 10%. While some drivers may consider speeding to be a minor infringement, any pedestrian hit by a car that's crept over the limit will know how serious it is. The police are also using intelligence-gathered safety cameras to track down and tackle criminal behaviour of other sorts. Now, that is a ridiculous paragraph. But most people will think, oh, well, that's the statistics. Well, the statistics are complete garbage, and what I'm actually doing, I'm going to send him back a questionnaire I've designed, which actually will make the point of how ridiculous the way we try at the moment interpret when somebody is speeding actually is. So I'll just let me read the questionnaire out. So I've designed it as a questionnaire for Brian C. Pritchard, Manager Fixed Penalty Support Unit. Completing this questionnaire will assist me in my objective to bring back common sense to this country. Please spend a few minutes completing it. Question 1. If a speed limit in a town is 30 miles an hour on a dry and sunny day with no traffic, what speed do you feel it should be reduced to on a day with very thick fog at night in heavy traffic to maintain safety? And how should that be advised to the public and enforced if a wall of fog descended on, say, the whole of Bicester? There's space for an answer. Question 2. An old granny is driving at 10 miles an hour in a town, suffers a stroke, her foot slips off the brake and she drives over the child where inadvertently the brake has also slipped on the pram so that the pram has split into the path of the car. Please advise what speed, if any, above stationary would be considered safe by the police in these circumstances and will create the best possible chances of survival for the infant passing under the wheels of the car. And answer again. Question 3. A lad of 16 whose father has just been imprisoned on dubious evidence from the police has stolen a car and drives to a built-up area at 90 miles an hour, ignoring the speed limit. On the rampage, he kills 15 people. Please advise how a speed camera or even a patrol with a radar gun would help to prevent the tragedy. Again, you can answer. Either you can or Mr. Pritchard can. Question 4. A first-rate driver paying attention passes through Bicester at 35 miles an hour when a man intent on suicide rushes into the road, throwing himself in front of the car. What speed do you feel he should have been driving at for this situation to be considered safe? Please answer again. Question 5. Are there any circumstances where you would consider the behaviour of a pedestrian should be liable to prosecution, and are there any circumstances where you consider they should be held responsible for the foolishness of their children or themselves, even if it were to lead to their death in front of a car driven by a sensible driver driving in the flow, either above or below the speed limit? Question 6. Do you consider that a responsible driver is better served by looking out for speed cameras or patrols, or focusing on driving in accordance with the conditions? Question 7. You mentioned if a vehicle hits an adult pedestrian at 30 miles an hour, the chances of survival is 80%. Is that equally true if they are hit by a 32-ton articulated lorry or a Reliant Robin? Exactly what weight or size of car produces the 80% statistic? And does it reduce to, say, 0 at 30 miles an hour if it is the lorry rather than the Reliant that hits the pedestrian? Question 7a. Following on from your observation that there is an 80% chance of survival if hit by the right kind of vehicle at 30 miles an hour, please tell me how the 20% who die feel about your answer. Question 7b. What are the statistics if a pedestrian is hit by a car at 30 miles an hour if the brakes are functioning at peak performance as the car has been regularly serviced, as opposed to some pile of crap that has not been well serviced, where the brakes were functioning well enough to get through an MOT, but are in fact operating at only 50% of their most effective performance? Thank you for completing the questionnaire, which will help me to assess ways to achieve real solutions to problems like speeding, rather than giving half-witted answers and knee-jerk simplistic solutions which will allow it to appear that something useful is being done. Much of the law is like this, ridiculous. In the end, it's the inability of people, through lack of intelligence, the ability to write proper English and speak proper English, that results in a failure to come up with a simple principle, which is something like, a person should drive responsibly in accordance with the conditions on the road that he feels is appropriate in the flow at the time. In the event that a situation arises whereby damage or injury is caused, the circumstances will be investigated and we may conceivably put in a prosecution if we feel that the evidence suggests that you were not driving in accordance with these principles. This would be a far more intelligent way of dealing with speeding, where you see multiple pile-ups on motorways caused by people driving at 70 miles an hour in driving rain or thick fog. There is no right speed to drive at, ever. It depends on the conditions, it depends on the traffic, it depends on how you feel, how your car's serviced, how good a driver you are, how alert you are, what mood you're in, and everything else. None of these things are taken into account by the ridiculous way that we currently deal with it. Please feel free to download them or to copy this question. You can refer to my website where it will be placed at some stage for you to download. But do take a stand every time. It's worth it doing it. You may end up out of pocket, but what you will gain is a tremendous amount of power, feeling that you're not helpless. And it is by doing things like this and doing what I did and fighting in court that the law starts to become less of an ass and become more sensible. Thanks for watching.